Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today. I'm very excited about today's interview. We're at the beautiful home of Mike Figler. This home is nestled in the woods of Hunterdon County, and I'm so excited to share the information with you that Michael has for us. Michael is a dear friend of mine and a very inspirational person, and he's been also an inspiration to many people in this space. Today we're going to find out what started Michael in this business, what times of his life was he been really down, and how he picked himself up and kept it moving. Well, today you guys will learn a lot, and hopefully it can help you guys in your career. And real estate advice is very hard to find, so hopefully you guys will get a lot out of this. Enjoy. Hello everyone, today we're here with Michael Figler, a longtime friend of mine. He's actually a really big, prominent investor in Essex County and Union County. I want to introduce him today because he's been pivotal to our success in Culture Estate and my personal success as a real estate agent from the day one when I started in this business. And I want him to share with you some of his low times and some of his achievements that he's done through his life, and hopefully he can inspire some of you to go out there and do the things you're meant to do and maybe have some success in real estate at the same time. So without any further ado, Michael, can you please tell us about yourself?
Well, my name is Michael Figler. I'm the CEO of Venture Capital. As you mentioned, you and I have been friends for quite a long time now, and we met in the real estate industry probably about, what, 10, 11 years ago now, yeah, right?
Definitely double digits.
Yeah, it was pretty much right before the big collapse, like 2008, 2007 actually. Yeah. And so we met really at the time when the market was going into the tank. I had been doing real estate for just a couple years prior to that. As you knew, I started flipping some single family homes I was picking up through sheriff's sale and various ways of, toxic assets I was acquiring. And that, essentially in the downturn, we went to a multi-family market. And that's where you and I met, in Elizabeth. We started buying up things, even not to really even make money, just essentially to sustain making it through what was really a downturn, because a lot of people were taking big hits, as we knew. Absolutely. And we were very fortunate to not take those big hits, and we made it through the survival mode, I guess you could say, and essentially made it through. And I think that was the best education that we probably could have got. We came in without all the frills and the thrills, and we came right into a time in the market when it was tough to make money in real estate, and especially flipping and working with hard money lenders that were used to certain rates and point percentages that you couldn't essentially really make money on in a downturn market that essentially was losing rapid percentages, in equity at a rapid basis. So you could have bought something, and by the time you finished the project, you could be 20-30% in the hole essentially, or upside down in the project. And first, second, third, fourth project, that can be devastating to an investor. Absolutely. So, knock on wood, luckily, I haven't had too many of those, but as you know, on a couple closings, there was a couple where, I got about $1,000.
Oh, you brought money?
Yeah, I don't think I had to bring money on one, but one of my investors one time had to take a $2,000 cut to make it work. Yeah. But those are, and I remember those two deals because one of them was 250 Inslee and Elizabeth.
Yeah.
That was
with that house.
He did very well with that house. That house turned out very beautiful. But yeah, essentially that turned in, and we made it through, and learned what works and what doesn't work in the market. And that's I think at that point, that's where you and I really started. We started walking through properties together, and figuring out the guts of real estate. If you want to make money in the industry, essentially you have to really know everything about it. Exactly. And what a house costs to repair is really important. Absolutely. So I think that's what you and I went into the brass tacks of stuff back then.
And I think there's no college where you can go to and learn this stuff, so I think the street is really the only teacher and experience with these homes, because a lot of people think that, that just because someone tells them it's a $30,000, $40,000 construction reno, and you go in there and it's always double or triple that, and the only way they're going to find out is by actually experiencing it. But let's backtrack a little. I want to find out what first made Michael Figler interested in real estate. Like, what first made you catch that bug?
That's actually a good question. From a young age, I was always a very creative individual. I wrote music, I drew, I designed things, and that just kind of naturally led into, I think, real estate through my father. worked on cars and built hot rods, and that gave me, an ability to see something go from essentially a wrecked piece of garbage or a lump of steel into a beautiful work of art. And that was something that was within me, and my father kind of gave me that opportunity to unlock that, and that just grew into, cars at 15, 16, and then it was always want to do something bigger and more creative, and that required more. It was more of a challenge. And real estate was just the natural evolution from cars.
Absolutely.
And now it's turned into companies.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, now you do it. You do it on a larger scale. When I first met you, we were introduced through a mutual friend. You've always had this way about you that you're very tough and you want to assert yourself right away. When I first met you, I'm like, who does this guy think he is? He's talking me down, and I haven't even done anything wrong yet. But I think it's that personality that you have sometimes that really gets you where you are, because people know you're a serious person. And I remember the first deal we had, you never knew me, but we closed it rather easily. And then after that, we kind of grew into this relationship where maybe we could do more business together. Fast track now, obviously we have all these years, behind us, and I know what kind of person you are. You have a genuinely golden heart. You really love to help people. What's your next venture? Like, what have you moved into? I know you're in the commercial space now, and and what's that currently doing for you?
Yeah, I've reached a point, I think, after, going through that and some other things for a couple years, and that affected me post the collapse, let's call it. I started looking at other industries. I was able to make enough money in real estate kind of part-time that I never had to dive into it full-time. I always had other interests, as you know. That's now led into, once I really went into Newark, Elizabeth was a stepping stone for that, but Newark was where I felt like I was actually really making an impact. I started buying buildings, and it went from, my first one was actually 5 units scattered, and that came by way of an investor that you introduced me to, who bailed out, and I was the hard money lender on the project. And that ended up being, so I started that project that kind of sat idle, and then I got approached with an 8-unit building. And when I went to the 8-unit building and we remodeled that, somehow the next building next door came about, and I ended up getting that by way of buying from a bank directly as an REO. And I watched myself rebuild this corner that was very dangerous, and it was in an unsafe neighborhood at the time. And we did the cameras, we made the apartments beautiful and brand new, and seeing the tenants that were coming in and the feedback, wow, you don't find this in this neighborhood, people don't do this kind of work, people don't have this kind of care. And I've always, you've known at closings, I'm a big guy that really loves to have the buyer love the home, because for me it's art. Everything I design personally, so I handle it from acquisition, I do all the design work, I implement the design work, handle the contracting. I have a general contracting company, it's a subsidiary of my holding firm, and we take it from A to Z, and even market it a lot. That I had in-house, you are pretty much my in-house guy, and I like to deal directly with the clients. So that same mentality in flipping fell into the same thing with the larger buildings, except now I was buying corner blocks, and I was watching a neighborhood that had, this burnt out large building, and now there's 40 brand new luxury apartments in a neighborhood that maybe never had the opportunity to have that. Right. And I watched that spread.
And it's still affordable.
We maintain completely affordable rents. We don't even go market. We make sure, we want our tenants to be happy. We want them to have longevity. We don't want them to feel like they're in an area that's going to be gentrified too quickly and push them out of the neighborhood. So, that's why we go through the extra efforts of importing a lot of goods and a lot of materials and things like that, so we can give higher quality for an affordable price to the tenants.
Right. And so Newark is going through a resurgence right now, and I know you're playing a critical part in it. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you see the future of Newark heading towards, and what you're involved in?
Well, Newark is, a lot of things are happening in Newark very quickly. Now it's kind of getting inundated with a lot of Wall Street. It's like anything else. Once, business starts flying, big business comes in. In the scope of things, I'm a very little guy. You have groups putting in hundreds of millions of dollars now, and watching, their plans and the things they're doing. I just love seeing just the whole process of, something needing help, getting the help it needs, and then watching people benefit and feel good and happy from it. And I'm just watching that in Newark, and that in itself is enough for me. You know, what projects and opportunities come about, I've always been a guy that just lets things kind of fall into place. You know, knock on wood if there was any around here. I've never really been a headhunter or a chaser, as you know. I believe in energy, and the world's kind of attracted a lot of things to me, and I think it's just going to continue to do that. And that's kind of how I look at Newark. It's kind of become a second home to me. If not a home, I spend most of my time there. And again, that's feeding that creativity and that love I love to see in people.
Absolutely. So where do you see your company going? I know you have a big, ambitious dreams. Like, where do you see Intercapital in 5 years, 10 years? Or like, what's the ultimate goal here?
Oh, well, you know, I only started really thinking ultimate goal recently. I've kind of been having fun for a lot of years. I'm 36 now, and I think I left, you know, again, as I mentioned, part-time real estate. You know, I was in Las Vegas for a while. So I started building and designing some different type of projects there in the residential, you know, apartment buildings or homes or high-end homes that we do here in New Jersey. And that got me into some more technological things. You know, I did a digital pathology laboratory out there. We did one of the most sophisticated cultivation facilities in the United States for medical cannabis, and that was really rewarding because that I know we're helping a lot of people, and to kind of, you know, be able to say that we're a part of this really impressive facility. That was something that I came, and now I brought that back to New Jersey. So that's one of the things that we're interested in. We're touching upon this new multi-billion-dollar industry, essentially, that's emerging. There's a lot of real estate opportunities. There's business and ancillary opportunities as well, of course, that I'm working on as side projects. But that's kind of like the real estate playing into, like, you know, where I see Intracapital going. We just had a merger with a hedge fund. They just made their first investment into my firm. We just got a large backing for a considerable amount of money. We're looking at projects of upwards of, you know, $20 to $30 million per project now. We're looking at multiple projects. Where do I see us in 5 years? Gosh, I only know. But in a couple years, I expect that we'll be a nine-figure company, fairly comfortably, and we're going to be investing into some other ideas that I've had in some other companies and startup companies that I'm working on. So, you know, I'll keep playing. Yeah.
Do you think these facilities are going to be a future of New Jersey as well?
Oh, well, they're going to be national. Realistically, I mean, we can go into that whole industry and where we think it's going to be going, but that'd be a long talk. But in the real estate aspect, you know, there's always a new market. Right now, we have a lot of big box stores closing. The residential market seems to be normalizing here a bit, but we are in New Jersey, which is still we are number 50 when it comes to foreclosures. I mean, we're number one. I don't want to say number one. It's horrible to say, but we don't really see it in our everyday work, but it truly does exist, and it exists a lot in our inner cities. And we both know a lot of people have taken advantage of markets in those inner cities and kind of bled them and, use them for their own gains and things like that. So we still have that battle in New Jersey in the residential market, but this new cannabis industry is going to give an opportunity to commercial real estate investors, developers. They'll have the opportunity to not only make acquisitions, but do the custom build-outs, potentially leasing and doing management agreements with the licensee cannabis companies that'll be coming in, or the testing laboratories. That's another industry. That's a little bit more for your more advanced developer. When you're coming down to designing antimicrobial laboratories and things like that, you're starting to get a little technical, and clean rooms and air makeup systems, but that's fun. That's the gadgets of the trade.
Of course. Well, I want to pick your brain a little bit because you mentioned earlier that we survived one of those cycles where it was a downturn in the real estate market, and we all know that the economy is cyclical. Have you made any predictions, or are you preparing yourself for another downturn in a residential or commercial space?
Yeah, I think it's natural. We're going to have a correction. There's things that are happening globally that are bigger picture as well. The stock market, the real estate market kind of looks normalized, as I mentioned a moment ago, but as we know, the stock market, everything affects everything. And I'm a firm believer in what goes up must come down. So the stock market being at an all-time high is probably one of my most fearful things. We have a lot of things changing in administration. So when you have drastic changes in government and a stock market that's still sustaining an all-time high, I don't know, that's a scary thing to me.
It's too much money in one place.
Yeah, it just seems like there's too much room for mistakes to be made, and when the government's not very organized, or at least not, they're saying one thing and it's changing the next day, and again, you have this top dollar in the market out there. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's really scary, but I think we've positioned ourselves pretty well.
I
think we'll be okay.
Now, going back to the real estate world, do you think there's a bubble in the hard money space right now? Because I do see a lot of money pouring in from Wall Street. Do you think that's a new
VC
subprime?
money is definitely coming into the market. I don't really follow the policies, the loan policies as much, because I'm more of just kind of a creator. I like to buy, build it, and then let the market determine what it's worth and all of that good stuff. But from what I hear, some very aggressive lending is coming out again, and Wall Street is the one that that kind of does essentially feed that and plants that seed. When hard money costs start becoming more competitive and start coming down as well, that's a little. It's good and it's scary at the same time. I feel the guys that are flipping their homes and their startups, they should definitely be paying those interest rates because that's part of the hard knocks. But when you have guys like us, we can't work at those types of hard money rates because we're borrowing millions of dollars. So it's very different. But as far as that goes, I'm in a little different category and ballpark when it comes to those types of things.
Okay.
So
awesome. Anything you'd like to leave us with? I know there's a lot of things on your plate right now. Any last words for anyone watching who might be looking to get into real estate or know more about the commercial space or anything you could leave?
I'll keep it really simple. Like anything, if you want to be the best at something, you should try to be your best if you want to be good at something. And by being the best, I always look at it as you should know just about everything about the industry you're trying to be involved in if you want to really excel in it, no matter what that industry is. So that being said, if we're talking real estate here, you're talking about acquisitions, we're talking about financing and funding, we're talking about building and project timelines, making sure costs meet them. So you need to know what things cost. This is very, very important. Most investors just think they can buy, throw a number at something like Lou mentioned before, 30, 40,000. I can tell you in 12 years of doing this, no one has ever been right. Even I am not always right. I'm off sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, even on just $1 million project. So knowing, and I know my costs, I can tell you what everything costs, and your average investor cannot. So I think it's really important that as a startup investor or even a seasoned investor, you continue to hone your skills, you continue to educate yourself, because the more educated you get, the more you hone your skills, the easier it's going to get, and then the more fun it's going to become, the more money you're going to make. It's just all, it's all kind of natural. You want it to be natural. You shouldn't have to fight this industry.
Exactly. And I'd like to leave a few words for the audience. And what I'd like to remind everyone is that this road is not easy. I remember there were times when I first met Mike and he was doing amazing. He was doing great. He was making more money than anyone I've ever met in my life. But then there were times when Mike was dead broke as well. And this is after I've already knew him for years. And then Mike didn't give up. He had every chance to say, you know what, this is not for me. I'll go do something else. He put all his chips in and he came back not only as strong as he was, but even stronger. So if you really want to get into this space, just be prepared for a bumpy road. It won't be easy, but if you really want it, eventually you'll get it. So thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. You have a beautiful home. And thank you guys, and see you next time.